What is up, Junior Golf Blueprint people? As you can tell, it has been a hot minute, and I apologize for the length of time in between episodes. Usually I kick this thing off in the fall, but we've had a lot going on. One new addition to the podcast is now available on YouTube, so I strongly encourage you to go watch the YouTube video so you can see me and my guests interacting as we video chat or do face-to-face interviews safely, obviously with the pandemic. But let's give you guys a little bit of background as to what's changed since last year. So, since the last episode of this podcast, I have changed locations. I've moved to Indian Hills Golf Course in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's a public facility that has given me an opportunity to start my podcast. If you're looking behind me on the YouTube, you can see the inside of my new training studio. It's a 2-bay hitting studio, and I have an 18-hole golf course with a couple of practice putting greens. Super thrilled that I'm going to have the opportunity to start this new academy for my podcast and for teaching golf, right? So that all changed. The wife and I are having our third kid. It's going crazy as part of the whole reason why, again, so many things are happening right now in my life that it's been wild to try and sit down and get this podcast started back up. But here we are in the winter. Got some extra time on my hands again, finally, after the holidays, to start recording these episodes for you guys. And I've missed chatting with you guys and sharing the podcast. And I've so appreciative of your support, over the last few years while this thing has been alive. And now I'm excited to have the YouTube channel also running the podcast so you can watch us as we have these chats. And so with that, I wanted to give you guys the update as to where things were, why it's been gone for so long, and now we're back on the gravy train making episodes. I got some awesome guests lined up for you, and today's guest is my best bro from Canada, or Canada, however you want to call it, Doug Lawrie. And I can't wait to bring him on the show for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. Talk to my main man, Doug, who is up there dealing with lockdowns but still coaching kids. And it's been a crazy year for everybody. So I hope you've been safe. And I hope you guys have had a chance to play some golf because everybody's rounds are up. So let's get into this episode. We'll talk to you soon. What's happening, everybody? It's been a long break, and your boy Matt is coming back full circle with the Junior Golf Blueprint. And on top of that, we have it coming out on podcast app, but we're also going to be throwing it up on the YouTube channel now. So if you haven't been checking me out on YouTube, make sure you go do that. Matt Walter Golf Academy on the YouTube channel. And that way you can watch these videos with my man like you got today with Dougie, fresh in the corner, in the house. We had to get the glare off the forehead, but my man's here. Focus Golf Group on Instagram, rocking it out, teaching all the greatest kids in Canada. And Dougie, I first time you came on the show, I hardly knew you. And then now we're like besties.
Yeah. We are. It's really wild, eh? It's so unbelievable. If you think about it, it's just been a little over 2.5 years that we actually have known each other. So that I accosted you on the range up at Vanderbilt Legends.
That's right.
But it's like, hey, who are you? Nice to meet you, right? And the really cool part about this is, and I was saying this to somebody the other day, is like the connections I've made through social media and the friendships I've created. I mean, I have some wonderful relationships with some amazing people, you being one of them. I mean, we talk in so similar, on similar lines and values, principles, character. It's both family guys, and it's really neat because we share, we talk, there's no egos. We offer, like opinions, or we say, hey, what do you think about this? And what I'm finding, and I don't know if you can echo this, but I'm finding it so nice. It's nice to share. It's nice to find like-minded individuals. And it's nice to not feel like you're, hey, this is all mine. Look at me. Yeah, ha, ha. Like it's more like, hey, listen, you know what? I got some cool stuff to share. Yeah. I mean, you shared one with the paddle there, the swim paddle the other day. I thought that was just amazing, right? And I mean, I've seen Mike Adams do that, but again, you've taken Mike Adams, seminar and stuff like that. And I love how you use your platform to just make people better. And the other cool part about this is what's changed in 2.5 years in both of our lives. And how it's for the better, but you think you're heading down one road, And then all of a sudden opportunities show up, and things you may not see as opportunities turn out to be even better opportunities. So I'm just amazed. And I think this is so very honored to be the lead guy in your coming back to the Blueprint podcast, because people should be listening to this. You have some amazing people come on, and I think, sharing and giving people the opportunity to listen and now watch these interviews on your YouTube channel with some of the leading edge people in junior golf, I think is spectacular. And I commend you for that. And I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was funny because I started YouTube during the pandemic, and I think we did an Instagram live on your channel.
We did. Yep.
Right as pandemic was kind of like in the heat of it. We didn't know what was happening. And you're like, have you slowed down at all? I was like, Dougie, you know me. I can't. This is not possible. So I just started making dozens of YouTube videos, and now they're out in full storm, man. And but like you said, a lot of things have changed, right? I changed locale. I'm no longer at Legends. I'm over here at Indian Hills. I went from a private facility to a public facility, and it was funny. I was kind of talking to some of my friends about it. It's like, I can't count the number of pros that would leave a place like Legends, where it's 1,000 members, 36-hole facility, 2 university teams, 360 driving range, short course attached to it. I mean, it's pretty much like an ideal locale. But for me, I'm not going to say I didn't like it there, but I felt restricted on what I thought I could do, right? And so then it was another like one of those where I got fired from West Haven back, 2016. It was like one of those, you got to get outside your shell, and that one forced me to get outside the shell. And then Legends, I was beginning to see the shell start to go like this again, start to come back and collapse in on top of me. I was kind of like, all right, well, I got 2 options: charge more money or teach more hours, and one of those is not an option with 2 kids and a pregnant wife. So, we punted that plan, and here I am in Indian Hills, and I've already got a kid who's studying underneath me. He joined the PGA because, I'm not gonna say because of me, he was already thinking about it, but I was like like, if you're going to do it, get off the horse and just do it, kind of thing. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's been awesome, kind of like giving it back to him a little bit to show, these are the steps you got to do to become a pro, man. And it's been awesome.
I have a question about that, and I mean, this is just very, very similar with regards to myself as well, because having been worked since 2016 at a private club here in Canada, and then finding out that they didn't want to renew my contract last November and going, why? And not thinking I was doing anything wrong. And I wasn't, based on numbers and, the effect I had on the club, but they wanted to take it in a different direction. What you can't see the forest for the trees a lot of time there, Matty. And it's really funny because I then ended up going to another facility, one that I had been at before, but I came back to it. And the really cool part is they needed a head pro. So I grabbed one of the associates from the club I was at. He was going nowhere and needed his opportunity.
Right.
So the really cool part about this whole thing is this is a semi-private facility, right? And similar to you are allowed to be yourself and can do Matt Walter 100% every day,
right,
at Indian Hills. I can do the same at Trafalgar, be Doug Lawrie, be Coach Doug. Every single day I am at Trafalgar. I don't have people saying he shouldn't be doing that here, or, oh, that's not our image, or, he does too much juniors, or he has too many outside lessons, or whatever that is, that, it seems to be that there's this private club mentality that they once they get you, and unless you're working for somebody who totally understands who you are,
right,
and allows you to be you and understands the benefit from that, right, and can see and can turn to the members and go, this is what this guy's bringing to us. Because again, we're always out on the range. We're always front and center. People see us. They may not see the director of golf, but they always see us because we're always on the range.
Right.
And they always see our personalities lend itself to being always friendly and gregarious. And then kids, they love being around us. And we just breed a positive aura,
right,
that a lot of people aren't really, don't know how to handle.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah. And my thing about it too was like the owner where I'm at now, and he'll probably never listen to this, but it's okay. He's a world-class dude. I mean, from my last couple clubs I was at, it was always like, it should really be like this, not the way they're trying to make this happen. And this guy, like, flat out first meeting was like, look, this deal ain't for me. This deal is for you. and I know we're going to get something on the other side of what you do. So what do you want? And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of a different attitude that I'm used to hearing about. And so I laid out my proposal, right? And then he goes, well, how much space do you need in that building? And I was like, dang it, I didn't ask for enough crap. Let's shoot. And so, but it's worked out. I mean, he's very encouraging. We've actually we've had a lot of opportunity where I'm at now, where Bloomfield Links, which is a court, like a small little 6-hole course, a part of a 18-hole muni course. They're a guy that ran that thing, has had to retire, family reasons, so he's gone. So there's been a vacuum, right? And then I showed up, right, just at the same time. It's just like crazy how that crap works out. And so this guy has already had me like lined up to take that over, but I just told him, I said, look, if you called me last year, I could have done it. If you called me next year, I might have been able to do it. But right now, I got this thing, kindling, and I think I can make a bonfire from it. I'm not going to, distract myself just yet. And so he's like, well, we'll find somebody to run it, but I'm still going to send everybody to you. And I was like, okay, well, that's not a bad situation. And so it's 100%. Just, it's just funny how that kind of like that. I don't know, man. You're a man of faith, so you know how this goes. It's like it's just weird how things just line up, and you just can't predict it, right?
Listen. I got a story for you. Anyways, listen. He's always got you where he wants you. Okay, so that's the way I always believe in it. It's really funny. So I go from this private club, all this stuff, and at the end of the summer in September, end of September, beginning of October, I work for this company that has 32 courses across Canada, mostly in Ontario, mostly in my kind of my geographical area, but they came and asked me, they wanted to establish academies at about 11 of their facilities. And they didn't have anybody to run it. And they asked me if I'd like to help them do this. I said, well, listen, I'm not taking anything away from these kids that I coach, because that's my focus. They said, okay, well, listen, why don't you be like a consultant and help us establish this, hire some people, create programming, get it going, and let's see what happens. So I said, okay, let me think about it. Came back with a proposal. They go, sure. I was like you, damn, I didn't ask for enough.
It's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
But this is what's actually fueling me right now while I'm here in my house on lockdown. We won't get into that stuff because we could have a whole other podcast about that stuff.
Hey, look, it's a heck of a day in our country too right now. Let me go ahead and tell you.
Oh, it is a heck of a day in your country, and we're not even going to get onto that either, okay? Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. Is that – no. Anyways, I had something to say to you, but that would have just started a firestorm. Anyways, but it's okay. Anyways, the really cool part about this is you don't know how your actions are going to affect others and or how you may be once you get through this. You walk, and my pastor once taught me this when I was going through a bit of strife with somebody, and they were saying bad things, and I really wanted to like get really angry and mad. And he was like, look, walk a higher line, recognize it, but walk a higher line, wish them well, and keep doing you, and put your faith in God and stuff, but like keep walking down the road that you're on, and don't walk down onto their level, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pull you down. Mm-hmm. So, and that was one of the things that I really professed on doing, is walked into this position, and I've been trying to do it with such, and it's worked out fantastically. And, it's really an interesting point, because I'm hoping I've got this young guy that I'm going to mentor, as similar to you. He basketball player, loves, really wants to get into coaching. And he sent me this text the other day, and you're going to really appreciate this. It basically was, because he's been learning a lot of Mike Adams, and he sends me this long-winded text about figuring out, based on arms, like talking about arm structure and how it releases, and talking about covering versus underplane, and under or over, right. And he's talking about that, and about how to get a person as a better ball striker. So that it was great, because I love the fact he's just nerding out on all this stuff, right? I really love it. He's a great kid. And then I said, okay, so tell me how you're going to apply this to a junior, a woman, like a fairly new female golfer. I said a low handicap and a tour player.
Right.
And he goes, Yeah, that's what I don't know. And so this is the real, right?
Yeah.
But this is the key. You know, there's so much information out there right now. Like our industry has put it out there during this last year.
Oh, man.
Like, I mean, in droves, you know, like certifications and, you know, you get training and like podcasts and web, you know, like, you know, Zooms and all this stuff. Right. And the really interesting thing is you still have to teach it to someone.
Oh yeah.
And I really think that getting somebody to understand how you coach someone versus teach or instruct is really, really where I think this is a super important point. And I really believe that with all this information overload, similar to this young man, it's up to us to be able to get these guys to apply it.
Right.
And do it in a way that people get better and they're not talking PhD like how you and I might understand. They have to regurgitate it at a grade 2 level.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, you know, it's it's funny you use second grade because my dad and I were having this conversation. My dad and I have been hanging out for the last week, and we had like lunch yesterday while my boys were at school, and we're just chatting. And I kind of got on one of those soapboxes kind of talking about how, you know, the world of coaching or whatever, and how I get fired probably more often than other coaches because I'm going to tell you, one, exactly how it is. I'm not going to like butter you up a little bit. I mean, if you don't want an honest opinion, I'll tell you right now, don't take a lesson from me. And so, you know, I was kind of laying it out for my dad, and I was like, the hardest challenge, and you took words right out of my mouth, the hardest challenge as a coach is that you have to understand it at a granular level, but you have to be able to regurgitate, like you said, at a second grade level. And my dad was sitting there pondering about it. He's like, what do you mean? And I was just like, well, think of it this way. If I talk to you about beta, alpha, and gamma torques, you're going to sit there and go, what the hell are you talking about? And, you know, but if I tell you, like, you got to do this to make the face go over there, he's like, well, that makes more sense. I'm like, right, but I have to understand why that happens. And the other guy just needs to know this is how it happens. It's a completely different arena. And he's just kind of,
you know that gamma rays was what turned Bruce Banner into the Incredible Hulk, right?
Yeah, I think I got too many of those gamma rays in the form of corona rays because I got me a Corona 19 sitting down here in the whole belly at the moment. But
oh, you got one of those, do you? Oh, hey, no.
So short funny story. The gym, I changed gyms 6 weeks before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, you went from Orange Theory to another gym
to CrossFit. Yeah. And I started doing CrossFit just because I was tired of all the running. I wanted to start lifting weights again. I wanted to get back into that arena. And, as a golf coach, it's almost ironic. I hate golf workouts. Like, I think they're great. I hate doing them. Like, I need, I want you to feel like you're dying every minute of a workout. That's what I like. And so that's how I felt. And I'll tell you right now, I don't care what people say about CrossFit, people getting hurt, this, that, the other. Like, I get it. You're going to get hurt if you work out. That's inevitable, in my opinion. The gym I was at, these people made sure you did everything right. They didn't want you to do it wrong, do it for fast. But I'll tell you right now, it is a very humbling experience when you're like one of the people that people look up to in Orange Theory, and then you kind of have a gut check, like looking at yourself, you're like, I should not be the ideal fitness model. You go to a CrossFit gym, and you can't do and don't take this the wrong way, ladies, you can't even do the women's RX. You're like, I'm in the right spot. I need to get better. But
no, listen, I can parallel exactly all of this because for me, it's yoga, right? Like I've talked to that about, right? Like I'm a big yoga guy. Right before COVID hit, like I was up to 3 days a week. I was like 207. Dude, I haven't been 207 since college. Okay. Like I was 207, I was leaning out, I was so strong, right? Meanwhile, when I first started this yoga stuff, you got all these wonderful other yoga people in the hot yoga studio, and I'm watching them, I'm looking at, and the instructor's doing something, or the person beside me is doing something, and I'm looking at them going, really? Like I'm a 215 pound man. You want me to do that? But the really cool part is when you realize that if you don't try your competitive self in yoga, because again, you hurt yourself. I overstretched all this stuff. the minute I stopped being competitive with myself in terms of like pushing myself, all of a sudden it started turning. And it was like, I was like in such an amazing spot when COVID hit. And then it's like, yeah, I haven't been back to the yoga studio in a year. So it's like frustrating. Right. But again, getting back to your point, grade two level coaching. And I think this is a great point because, you know, if you want to be a top shelf junior coach, let alone a coach, all right, yeah, there's so much more than just knowing X's and O's.
Right.
And I think that's what separates you from a lot of people is that while you don't patronize the kids, similar to myself, you're not like you're excited for them. And I really think in this day and age, I actually wrote something down the other day that, you know, don't patronize these kids, be realistic, be truthful, and show good character.
Right.
You know, you don't need to sit there and tell them they're amazing when they're okay.
Right.
You can say to them, hey, great effort, great job. I listened to this great podcast on Way of Champions, and this gentleman that was on there was a British psychologist who's developed this motivational interviewing process. He's written a book, and it was really interesting because it really puts it, you're basically interviewing your student to motivate them to do the work.
Interesting.
And it was a very interesting process, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're not trying to, you know, he said this, and I bet you would say that you and I are pretty much the same person. We are writers. Now, when I say not writers, writers, we want to right the wrong.
Right.
So we see our students do something wrong, and instead of asking them a leading question for them to try and give us the answer, we give them the answer.
Right.
Because we want them to get better.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Michael Breed it was interesting because I saw Michael Breed at one of our shows here in Tennessee. Gosh, it was probably 2017, maybe 2016, and he talked about Socratic teaching, right? Which is kind of what you're saying there. Is like, I'm going to lead you into the answer you're supposed to give me by asking the question the way that you should answer correctly, and it kind of like stems the conversation a little bit to make them answer it the way you want them to answer it, but then two, also put together the concept on their own without. And I interviewed, you know, he's kind of like one of the golf mecca guys here in town, Whit Turnbow, in a previous episode, and he said something to the effect of, you know, you want to lay the path for them, not walk the path for them, you know, and that one hit home with me pretty sound.
Oh no, absolutely 100%. I mean, in the environment of lawnmower and helicoptering parents, right, that we see, right? And I mean, why do we need to be a helicoptering or leading coach? I mean, lawnmower coach, right? We want to try and help them. We want to give them the gas to start the mower, right? And let them mow the grass, because giving them the tools and the motivation and leading them to the answers is so important. And I find it hard.
Yeah, it's
hard not to try and give them the answer, because you're sitting there going, and my ADHD just takes over and just goes, right?
Well, and I think, you know, here's something for you. So there's always part of an expectation with the parent that you're supposed to, you know, handhold them a little bit, right? And give them the answer and do all this stuff. And, you know, part of, I think, coaching too is kind of like balancing that equation of what a parent thinks the lesson should be like to how the actual lesson should go, right? And then kind of like that's where those first few lessons, everybody's trying to figure out like the pulse, right? You know, sometimes a parent is trying to like interject their opinion a little bit, and then sometimes they're, you know, sitting back and you know, just watching it all go down. Then others are kind of, you know, will tell you like, hey, why didn't you do this for them? And it's like, well, they need to kind of learn, right? You know, they're not gonna learn if I do it for them.
No, absolutely. And you're bang on with that. I think that comes generationally because of the way that I think parents, by and large, not all parents, but by and large, you know, these parents are trying to give their child the best.
Right.
And I mean, now more than anything, golf's the soup du jour, man. Like it is the sport of the day.
Oh yeah.
And right now it really is, and here in Canada, I mean, we are even more so like conservative in terms of what we're allowing people to do. And I mean, you have to think, okay, so it's a perfect opportunity to turn these kids onto the game of golf, but you're also looking at it. Okay, are the parents, willing to allow you to be the expert that you are and help them understand? Not everybody's going to have an opportunity to get a coach by me, but they can get somebody who's been trained by me,
right?
To help them understand that, hey, listen, it's all about character over image, and we're working on these kids to be, truthful, honest, respectful, all these things,
right? While
they're learning some golf. And I really think this is where we need to up our games as coaches. And I actually gave a Zoom chat to a group of parents and kids, about 40 of them, just after New Year's, actually. Mm-hmm. And I was explaining to them how to find a junior coach for your child, and
I remember that.
Right, yeah. What's the difference between a coach and an instructor, right, or a teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting because the feedback afterwards was pretty neat, because a lot of people think that just because a person either, like, I love this quote. I found it on the Ironman, US Ironman Association. So like Ironman training, mm-hmm. Triathlon training. This woman wrote this wonderful article about how not all the best players make the best coaches.
Right.
And it was really interesting because I often see this where, hey, we have some coaches up here that are amazing, that were, very good players, mm-hmm. but, and they're very good coaches, but it's not always across the board.
Right.
Right. And I relayed that to them, and it was an interesting concept because a lot of these parents, think that it's repetition is a key, mm-hmm. and if the person just sits there and hits as many golf balls as they possibly can, they're going to get good.
Yeah, not so much.
Not so much. But when you have a culture that's known that for thousands of years, that repetition is key and that's what gets success.
Right.
It takes a very different mindset to be able to change that they don't know anything different than they have their whole entire history.
Right. No, I mean, that goes back to like that Daniel Coyle book, was it that 10,000 hour rule or whatever it is, right? And you kind of sit there and start doing the math, and you're like, "Oh, maybe by the time I'm 40, I'll figure that one out," And so, I think, and this is what I tell kids now, and I've said this before, I'm sure, but like again, for me, when I was growing up, 16, 17 years old, the VHS tapes was just now starting to get popular, and I would have to take my tripod, little mini VHS, record my swing, go down to the shop or my home, back to the house, put parchment paper over the screen or some kind of like wrap over the screen, take my expo markers, draw on the lines, hope I hit pause at the right time, which I never did, and you're always hitting reverse and pause and reverse and pause. You just kept playing this game of trying to time it the right place. And now kids on their phone have 240 frames per second. But you know how hard it is to get a kid to actually like use that dang thing and send you a video, right? And you're like, hey man, all you gotta do is use your phone to record your swing instead of texting your girlfriend, and we can do something, Yeah,
get off Snapchat and send your coach a video, for crying out loud, right?
Oh man,
oh yeah,
it's crazy,
right?
And so but then to that same effect, we can impart change. This is why everybody's getting faster on tour. This is why scores are getting lower on tour. Is we have so much information, like you were saying earlier, about all this stuff that's come out in the last year because coaches were locked up. And mm-hmm. It's amazing to me the quality of golfers that we're producing at such a young age because of the information we're getting of how to practice, how to move your body, right? What ways actually make you a better athlete, which makes you a better golfer in turn, right? I mean, heck, one of my kids shot 9 under at the state championship this year and came in 3rd and lost by 4. I said, dude, you shoot 9 under any other year, you win that thing. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Listen, a young guy that was at the club where I was before, he plays for University of San Francisco. So I follow him on Instagram, and they had qualifying yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He posted the scores. Okay. So Matt shot 5 under par, like 67.
That's pretty good.
Except there were 365s, 266,
mm-hmm.
and he's 67. And I'm like, dude, you're 6th, and you're like ranked in the top 200 of the in the world amateur rankings, and you're on our team national development team.
Yeah.
And you go out and shoot 5 under and are lapped. You know, you can't even sniff the team.
Well,
like you can't even get on the team.
That's the same thing that happened at Vandy. So when I was there, not coaching for Vandy, but at the same golf course,
right? Yeah.
You had Mateus Schwab, Will Gordon, Theo Humphreys, Patrick Martin, and John Augustine, all on the team at the same time. All of them have gone to the tour, mind you. Okay, if you didn't shoot 62, you weren't qualifying. Like 63 was getting kicked out some days. Like, stupid. I'm sitting there going, I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Wait, hold on. 63 at Vanderbilt Legends?
The South Course, yeah. If you shot,
shut up.
Yeah. 60, they were shooting 62, 63, 61. I mean, it was dumb. Every week, somebody was shooting that.
That South Course is hard.
It ain't easy in some holes, that's for sure.
No. I do like the setup of the back nine, though. I do like how that is. I mean, it's a great challenging golf course. But man, I mean, that 10th hole is just so hard. But
it's a 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5 exactly right. I mean, that green is just so big, and I mean, the pins in the back left corner. It's like, what are you? You got no chance. You got to hit like 5-iron in there, and it's like, oh my gosh. Now, were those guys long enough to get over the water and onto the other fairway
on 10
from the back? On 10 or no, they couldn't. That's like, I mean, it's like 310. It's like 310, right?
And it's so narrow there too. That's just not the play. I mean, they'd hit hybrid, maybe 3 if the wind's in the face, or 3-iron, something like that off the tee, and then they'll have buck 80 in, so they're probably hitting 7-iron or 6-iron into the green, something like that. So it was a good par 4.
So here's my question for you, and this brings me. You've been around and witnessed absolute ball striking mastery and players that are like amazing in terms of like at the college level.
Yeah.
What is the biggest thing that stood out to you that made them the greatest that as great as they were? And to this point, Vandy did not win the national title with all those guys on that team.
Right. So I mean, for me, watching, like I said, when I showed up, the list of players in Scott Limbaugh's, stable was ridiculous. But it was their attention to detail when they practiced. So they never really, you never really watched the guys hit more than a half hour to an hour's worth of golf balls, like ever. I mean, it was like super rare for them to be there for hours. Like they're never hitting balls for hours. Never saw it. And mind you, we also had Ben Crane and Brant Snedeker out there practicing from time to time too, right? And it was the same thing. It was never 4 or 5 hour sessions. Now, I've talked to the guys about this, and what you have to kind of remember too is, they are way more advanced in their game, so it's not like they're trying to recreate something or change something.
Understandable. Yes, understandable.
But like Augustine had a notebook, and it was like, here's all the things I need to do today. It was like down to the T in time, and like if I was in the way for time, I would just like, hey man, if I need to shut up, or we need to not talk so you can do stuff, or you gotta go to the next thing, whatever. And it was very structured on time. And Ben Crane was the same way. It was like, I gotta be out of here by this time. I gotta hit like 6 more balls. Gotta go, blah 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 blah, on to the next thing. And so when they practiced, it was with so much purpose. It was insane, right? And obviously when they had the big team practices, there was some, tomfoolery, some joking around. Limbaugh's up there chopping their, to death about, hitting crappy shots or something like that. And, they're out there, competing and practice a lot too, which was something else I thought was interesting. A lot of competition heavy stuff for the Vandy people. And so when they were repping, when it came to like ball striking stuff, I mean, to begin to describe like how 15 feet of curve with a 3-iron would piss John Augustine off was unbelievable. It was like that 3-iron curve too much. I'm sitting there going, I'll take the fucking 3-iron. I'm like,
I'll take that all day long. Absolutely, 100%.
I'm like,
you don't want that?
I'm in on that one, dude. And so it was just amazing their expectation that they had for themselves, but they didn't beat themselves up over it either, right? So they like held themselves to a high standard. They happened to they did their stuff with a purpose. And then at the end of the day, they had like a recap of like, here's what I did, here's what I didn't do, here's what I need to improve, and then on to the next thing.
So you touched on something there that I'm actually becoming very much aware of, and I think this is it could be a two-parter for you. So the attention to detail, Ben Crane, John Augustine, the attention for detail in their practice, and the fact that they had it written out, okay, shows the dedication to their craft of understanding the managing of the quality of practice they're after.
Right.
However, I think one of the biggest gaps that we have is getting our kids to understand how to practice.
Right.
And I don't think anyone teaches that. No one teaches anybody the management of time, the details of how to design your own practice, and the value it brings to your game if you follow it.
Right.
And it's so funny. I'd be sitting on the range coaching. I'd have a few of my girls in the area practicing, and I'd be like 45 minutes into a lesson, and I look at this one girl and I say, Kathy, what are you doing? What are you working on? My driver. I'm like, guess what? I watched you for 45 minutes. Okay. And you know what? I want you to go do something else. And the really interesting thing here is do you find that a struggle for you as a coach, getting kids to understand how to practice, not to practice, just how to practice correctly? And what do you do to help them?
Yeah. I mean, I think getting the kids to put in like a quality, like it's funny, man, because you say that and like, just getting kids to keep track of basic statistics is like you think I'm smacking them with a ruler like a nun at the Catholic school. You know what I mean? And it's like, how do you not know how many putts you had? Like how have you not kept track of any, like how many balls you had to play? Oh, like these are very simple statistics. And so what I try to encourage to them is like, and this is actually another part of the conversation I had with my dad is like, here's the thing, right? I'm not going to do this for you. Like, and I tell them that, like, you have to make a decision. Like, do I want to play college golf? Do I want to play professional golf? Do I want to just make the high school team? And then you have to tell me what you want. And then I tell you what I expect from you from practice or time involved or things like that. Because part of my fear is I wanted to tell a kid that's just trying to make his high school team the stuff they have to do to be a tour professional. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't want to scare them out of like, you got to go hit, a bunch of balls here. You got to go chip and putt. You got to do these drills on the chipping green. You got to do these drills on the putting green. I just want them to, tell me first, like, what's your involvement level? Where are you at? That's the biggest thing I find is like, you ask a kid that, you'd be shocked how many times like, where do you want to go with this game? And they'll sit there with a blank face, and you're like, I don't know. You haven't contemplated this yet? Like, you haven't thought about high school golf, college golf, professional golf? Like, it's just like, nah, I'm just here. I just, want to take a lesson, not be terrible. It's like, so there's problem one. We have made that decision, right?
Kidding, eh?
So I think that's it. And what's cool is that, which I know is the Op 36 stuff. I actually got involved with that this year because I've liked it a lot. I just wasn't able to do it at Legends. It just wasn't feasible. And I'm actually changing some of the things that they're doing, right? They kind of tell you on the front end, like, you don't want to make a whole bunch of changes. And I'm like, I'm going to make a whole bunch of changes. I'm like, I'm going to tell you. Like, I got to.
Yeah. No. I've done it. And I looked at it. And I mean, I did it for a year. And the one thing, I mean, hey, listen, they have done a great job of bringing a lot of people to this game. I would not have anything to say against it. But it's very much reliant on you and your ability to create programming and then execute it and fill it up and do it that way. And, again, fit is very important. Right. And it's, I find there's a lot of things that you can do, like already like think past of what, where it is. Yeah. Right. Well, so it's kind of, I agree.
That's what I told him. I was like, look, I got kids that are competing for state tournaments that, are going to be involved in this, right? So shooting 36 from 25 yards is not happening. Like I'm changing that bar altogether. So what I did was I changed the bar to 27 all the way up to 150 yards. So you got 25, 50, 100, 150. All 4 of those yards, they got to break 27. And they show you the stats. Like the tour player shoots 22 for 9 holes from 25 yards, right? Which I think might still be a little high, but that's my opinion. But I get it. I mean, 4 most up and downs over 9 holes, I get it. And so that's kind of what my benchmark is for the kids. Like, look, if you're going to be part of the kids that are competing, you're going to break 27, not 36, before you go back a yardage.
I like that. That's great.
That's what's happening.
That's
great. And so, but then we have like the whole training thing, and I sent them a message like, hey, my kids are working out. Where do they put the workouts in? They go, oh, we don't have a button for that. I was like, I need a button for workouts. Like my kids are going to the gym and training with TPI guys. Like I need them to have a button for workouts so they can log the points. But the thing I like about it the most, and you know me, I'm a competitive guy by nature. I can't help myself, is the amount of competitiveness that's involved with that whole program that kind of like feeds itself, right? So every week, all the kids that are practicing, their points are right there, right? Like one kid right now is leading the pack by 300 points. Like he's way out in front. I don't think anybody's going to catch him. And then you got one of the kids sitting there thinking they're doing a lot at like 100 points, 700 points behind this guy. And I'm putting up on the leaderboard, hey, David's up here at 805. You're down here at 175. What's up? Like, are you not logging it? Are you too lazy to log it? And it goes back to like that practicing we're talking about. Are you too lazy to put it into the app and tell me that you're doing it? Or are you just not doing it? And then they'll look at you and go, I'm not doing it. I'm like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, why are we here?
and that's, it begs me the question, it's an interesting point. The competitiveness thing is really, oh man, this is where this really gets into an interesting question I have on that. Golf is such an individual sport, and I find a lot of kids gravitate to golf because they like the solidarity. They may be a little more introverted. It may be able to give them a little bit of purpose and confidence.
Right.
Do you ever, or have you ever found, like, doing that whole leaderboard thing, you're kind of walking a tightrope because, there could be some kids that don't really want their name. They don't do it because they don't want to embarrass themselves, or they don't want to show that they're not that good. So, and they don't do it.
I got 2. So I only put the leader. I don't put everybody. So it's just, and we have 6 different groups for this program right now. So 6 names are on the board. It's just the person that's in the lead, right? It's not, little Johnny down there with 0 is going to get dogged about being at 0, right? Him and I are going to have a conversation on the side, right? Sure. Because I also think, like, yes, I'm making it competitive in that facet, right? But I also think we don't coach accountability enough. Like, how many times do we hear if it didn't hit that sprinkler head, or if it wouldn't have bounced off my dad's head and gone out of bounds, right?
Excuse cited.
Exactly. So how often? So the way I look at it is like I now have a platform where they can easily put in their practice. There's no question about it. Like it takes 30 seconds to train my skills. This is what I did. I'm done. So there's no excuse to not do it if you're practicing. So then the kid and I can have a conversation of, okay, you didn't get any more points this last week. What's going on, Isaac? Like, oh, well, I had too much school, or, I didn't practice, or whatever. So then I start to get a pulse on where that kid's at. It's like, he's not going to practice a lot. So he's probably not going to be in that bracket. Maybe he's not there yet. Maybe he's not mature yet. Maybe he just doesn't want it yet. But then the kid that comes in and tells me, I want to play college golf, and is in that same bracket of not logging his points, not doing that, him and I are going to have a conversation about accountability. It's like, you tell me you want this, but you show me you want that. So which is it? And so, again, I know everybody gets uncomfortable with competitiveness, and I get it. There's people that just absolutely deter away from it. It's not a good thing for everybody. My brother's one of them. I'll say that. He won't listen to this podcast either. And so I make sure that if I can kind of get the signs that kid's not going to respond to it, I don't dog him about it. We just let that go. You know what?
Cool.
He's here. He's training. That's good enough for him. That's what he wants. Maybe he just wants a social component of it. That's
right.
Great.
And that's the thing, right? Yeah, the social component of it is such a is something that we don't even realize, right? That these kids, are looking for the sociability of being around some peers and competing, not competing, but like, working on some golf skills and go ahead.
No, I was saying, I think that just goes back into the interview question, right? Where do you want to go with
Right.
this? Like, are you just trying to get better? Because if you're just trying to get better, we'll do things you tell me you just want to get better, I already may chalk you up to, I'm here for the social. I don't want to be worse than my friends. I don't want to embarrass myself. I just want to go out and have a good time. Great.
Mm-hmm.
My expectation of you is not going to be up here. It's going to be more here. And so if you don't practice as much as a kid that's up here, that's fine. I'm not going to dog you about it. But then if you tell me, well, I want to make the high school team, well, then I might have to be that thing that bumps you into it. And you might not realize it.
Sometimes, hey, you know what? My buddy has this great saying, sometimes they got to get slapped tight. Right? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what you meant. And it's like, it's and not in the physical sense, but, sometimes they have to get, slapped tight to say the realism is, you can say this out of one side of your mouth, but you can't say this out of the other side of your mouth, because that's totally different, totally different things, right? And I agree with you. Accountability is so important. I mean, who was the Pittsburgh Steeler there that put out that thing about his son's not winning a 4th place ribbon or something? He gave him back. And,
oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Right?
I can't think of his name.
James, what's
Harden?
his name?
No,
That's
basketball player.
No, that was a basketball player. No, he talked about how like we our kids, don't need to be told, hey, great effort at 5th place and, get a ribbon, right? It's like, they lost, and like, that's the straight honest truth. I lost when it's such a massive point, right? Mm-hmm. How do you find the dealing with failure is, I got an interesting quote here. Henry Burris is a football player from the CFL here in Canada, and he was on our PGA of Canada T-Talks yesterday, talking about failure. And he puts up, he was talking about how failure or fail is first attempt in learning, right? A little acronym there.
Right.
And how do you find kids deal with failure in this day and age, compared to like when you were growing up, even when I was growing up? Because when I was growing up, because I'm considerably older than you, anyways, I know, like, hey, look, there was 1st and 2nd and maybe 3rd, but like, or you had to qualify. Like, I threw javelin and track, and top 5 out of Toronto got to go to the Ontario Provincial Championships.
Right.
So, it allowed you to go to to the next level. But, failing to qualify or failing to not come 1st or 2nd in the championship game of basketball, or, you didn't fail, you hit bad shots, you didn't play well in golf, you had to deal with it.
Right.
It was a lot different than it is now.
Totally.
And, were you sitting with me with Brett McCabe last year talking about up on the PGA Tour, a PGA stage, where he was talking about how this generation is so, they're the most medicated, the most anxiety driven, the most instantaneous gratification of want it now. And if they don't get it, they're going to call somebody who's going to tell them what they want to hear, because it might be not their current coach. It might be their coach from high school, or it might be their, first coach, because that person is going to tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
Right. Where they, the lack of patience and the lack of understanding your athlete is such a difference now compared to when, I was coming up through sport, or you were coming up through sport.
Right. Well, and I think it's a hard question to blanket for a bunch of kids. Now, how it differs from now, I think, from when I grew up, is exactly what you just said. It's like, kids now don't really fail in the sense that, like, hell, U.S. Kids puts out like 5th through 6th place trophies or something like that, and it's like, what are we doing, right? And so, 5, that's right. And so, when I grew up, it was kind of like one of those. It was one of those things that if you didn't win, there was nobody there to coddle you back, right? So, like, I have a great story about this from when and just to kind of lay an example for what it was like for me, right? So I think it was like 7th or 8th grade lacrosse team tryouts. I didn't make the team, varsity squad, right? I made the JV squad. But I knew for a fact that all the camps that the other kids did, I was just as good as the kid that made it ahead of me, I thought, right? And so I go up, instead of having my mom or dad go to the coach, obviously my dad was upset. He just go talk to the coach. So then I go to the coach myself and say, Coach, why did I not make the squad? Like, I did the things you said. We had to try out to the gym that year, which has really jacked with me a little bit more than I think it should have. But I was like, why am I not on the varsity squad? And we chatted out, and I left. And there was no that instant. There was no yeah, you're going to be on the team now. It was just like, here's where I thought you were weak. Go practice it. And when you get to 9th grade next year, maybe you'll make the varsity team as a freshman, right? But you got to do these things to get better. Well, then he thought about it, and he called my parents the next day and said, in my entire life of coaching, I've never had a kid walk up to me and ask why he didn't make the team. It was always a parent calling and complaining, cussing the coach out. And I was the first kid to walk through his door and say, I didn't make it. Why? What do I need to do to be there next? To make the next team. So then he says, because of that, he's going to be on the varsity team, but he's going to be third string, and he's going to have to earn his way up to starter. And, I earned my way up to starter. And I proved it, right? I proved it to him. Like, I'm good enough. I just had a bad tryout, And so, I don't think.
But if you don't interject, if you don't take that, and I mean, the examples of those are so few and far between, right? I mean, taking the initiative. I mean, I would say the same thing. I mean, to have a kid who is self-sufficient and come talk to me, and say to me, well, why am I not getting better?
Right.
Rather than the parent come to me and say, well, they're really not hitting the ball great and they don't know how to talk to you about it. And it's like,
but think about how many times you get a phone call right now from a parent that's just like, hey, can we talk about little Susie? And then you have to spend 20 minutes on the phone with the parent. And that's never going to get relayed to the kid. Like, you're going to have have that conversation again with the kid on your own. You're going to sit there and go, okay, well, the parent thinks this. The kid's telling me that. I had this was a classic case for me a couple years ago. Kid never once mentioned to me he wanted to make the junior cup team. Never mentioned to me his goals about playing in college. And I knew he was a competitive kid. He was a good player. But never mentioned any of that stuff to me. The stuff he was telling me, the stuff his dad was telling me that he wanted, make the junior cup team, do this, make this NES Elite, win these things, was never uttered by the kid in a lesson. Now, the kid and I would have a lesson on our own. Dad wasn't there. Dad would call me, tell me these things. And I'm sitting there going, okay, either the dad expectations are here, the kids' expectations are here, but nobody ever said that together in the room with me together. And I was like, why?
Right.
We're all not on the same page right now. What is happening?
And what do you think? What do you think that was? Just the dad's desire?
I think it was a combination. The kid's pretty humble, right? It's kind of more introverted in that sense. I don't think he wanted to tell me that partially. I think him and the dad would have conversations. I don't know if the dad was kind of leading him into that. I can't say that for sure. I didn't get that vibe, but I got a vibe of I'm not getting the whole truth from every party. And I'm like, I talk about the triangle, right? You got parent, kid, you, right? And you're making these little triangles. Everybody's got to be on the same plane of space. You can't have this communication, but then no communication here, and then still have communication here, and then there's a gap. Everybody's got to communicate. And I think it happens a lot.
It's an interesting point. While you're talking, I'm literally going through my brain, and I'm trying to remember the last time I had a conversation of that nature. And it's really interesting because it's a really interesting point. My parents will just observe what they see and relay it to me based on a tournament or something like that. But the conversations I have with the kid are, by and large, the ones I have with them. It's a really interesting point because I think, they're all, at least the kids I'm coaching, are all pretty good at expressing where they want to go. And I mean, I go through an exercise. I've created this exercise with them called a window pane that gives them a look into what they want to do and what they've done. So what are the things they've done well? What are the things they can improve on? what are their goals, and do they have a system to support those goals? Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system.
Right.
Atomic Habits, it's
Right.
clear, right? But I think I make them very much aware of where they want to go, and I try to keep the parent, unless they're, once the kid gets to an age of like 11 or 12, I actually have been really working on trying to make the child the self-sufficient and the connector. I try to connect with them more than I connect with the parent.
Right.
And I think that in some way that's really cut down on those phone calls of desire and where they want to go. And then the other part is just being straight up realistic, and getting to understand, well, okay, like I know where you want to go, but right now you're going through puberty.
Yeah, right.
And you're not growing yet, and yet things are changing. I can see it, and you're not hitting it as far as other people, and you're upset about that. And the year before you won 3 tournaments that you had no business winning, and this year you didn't even sniff any of it because you were, everybody's gotten a little bigger.
Right.
And everybody's a little different, right? So there's these things that you look at and you try to tie them together. And I like your triangle analogy because, it's the parent, there, you can never get, it's that old, blood is thicker than water. You can never get in between the relationship the parent has with their child.
Right.
And I really find it very much so much easier when you have that better relationship with the child, and the child is at least a little bit more self-sufficient in themselves.
Yep.
Do you ever have you ever forbidden a parent to like hang out?
I haven't forbidden, but I've had a couple parents, and where I've flat out just told them, I said, if you do that again, or if you keep trying to cut me off in the lesson, you're out, right? I've like I said, I've only had about, I know off the top of my head 2, and there's possibly a third, I think, brewing right now that I might have to have that conversation a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it goes back to like, you never want to see your kid struggle. Right, that's part of the problem. But at the same time, a lot of the ones that I've seen were like the parent didn't realize that, and we've said this 1,000 times, the kid doesn't want to fail, but the kid's failing because of something, right? It's not panning out because of something. So the last thing they need is why are you not doing that right? Why are you then, like, it needs them dogging you on top of me trying to coach them. You know what I mean? And so like I said,
when they hit a ball, they look at their parent, right? When they hit a ball, look at their parent.
That's
right?
the
It's like
obvious one, right? And so, like I said, 2 parents off the top of my head, I know for a fact I've had that conversation. Just do it again, you're out. And what's worse is I've actually fired kids, like, from a lesson because I had enough of their antics. Where I was just like flat out like, here's the deal. You're not you're not willing to learn. You're giving me a bunch of attitude. I'm not going to charge you for today, but at the same time, I'm not going to coach you today. And you need to go home and rethink about what we're doing here. And when you can figure, and this one actually kind of panned out way better than it should have. He comes in, has a tournament the next day, he's hooking it. I'm trying to tell him things to hook it. He goes, well, I don't want to change anything. I just don't want to hook it. I'm like, did you just hear yourself? And I was like, so what are we doing here today? He goes, I don't know. My mom made this lesson. I was like, you know what? Here's the thing. We're done today. We're done indefinitely. I'm canceling all the future lessons we've made. And you can call me. You can call me when you're ready for the next lesson. It took him 1.5 years before he called. Never took another lesson in the interim because we talked about it. I was like, well, who'd you go see? He goes, well, I didn't go to see anybody. And he's like, I just tried to figure it out on my own for a while, and I finally got fed up, and I called you because he kind of had that, like, all right, it took him 1.5 years, but he finally gave it the time to change it out. I'm done. And but when I fired him from the lesson, the mom was at a distance watching under the pavilion or whatever. She comes up and goes, man, he's hitting it everywhere. What's going on? I said, what's going on is he's fired. And like the look on her face was like, what? And I was like, his headspace isn't there. I'm like, he doesn't want to learn. He's insanely furious that he has a lesson today prior to his match. and he's blaming you for it. And it says, I won't see him until y'all figure it out on your own, and then you can come back, because this is toxic and there's something else going on that needs to be figured out that I'm not able to fix. That's above my pay grade.
Well, it takes it to have that to have the balls to do that is really actually sometimes you have to do it. I actually did it where I have my new indoor facility in yeah, it's really cool. So it just happened. It happened inside a month and a half. I was having a conversation on the range with a parent, and the parent said, "What are you doing this winter?" I said, "Well, simulator places are probably going to be pretty busy." I said, "But wait a minute. I saw, you sent me a video of Connor hitting a ball into a net in your warehouse." And I said, "You have a warehouse?" He goes, "Yeah, and it's here." And I go, "Oh my gosh, that's perfect." Turns out my cousin, Anne, who's an amazing coach on her own right. She's a former national team development coach. She coached two girls that are now she has two girls presently who are on the junior development team.
Wow.
The one girl won the provincial U19, Katie Cranston, and
Nice.
Nicole Gal. I mean, the two of them are just fantastic young women. So she called me and she's like, "What are you doing for the winter?" I told her about the space. She goes, "I'll go in halves." I was like, "Okay." I called the turf company the company that I've used for like 3 builds that I've done.
Right.
And literally in a month and a half, we had it built.
That's crazy.
So I'm giving Connor a lesson in his parents' warehouse, and I'm not too sure if he thinks he's in a place where he can be kind of goofy.
Sure.
But I literally turned to him and I said, "Okay, hey, listen, I know something about your grip, and this is why the face keeps opening, right?" And I said, "Okay, you got to try doing this." And now Connor's 8. Mm-hmm. He's a little bit drama, but
Sure.
a kid's great, but he had to learn, because I had already kicked him out of one lesson in the summer when he was when he wasn't really listening. And I said, "You know what? The lesson's over. I'm not going to take this behavior." He was 7. And so I go to talk to him about this grip, and he did this. He put his hands on his ears, and I went, "Okay, go get your bag, go put it back where you have it, and you're done." And the look on his face was like, he goes, "I'm sorry." I said, because he knew what he did.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm not going to sit here and have you disrespect me by putting your hands on your ears.
Yeah.
Our lesson's over, and I'll see you later." I didn't go tell his parents.
Yeah.
But his mom knew something was up, because he came in before the hour was over, because he went out to the front where the offices were.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What's going on?" And he wouldn't tell her. And then sure enough, he told her the next day, and he wrote me a note that said, "I'm sorry I disrespected you," and all this stuff. But I mean, rarely do I want to do that.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like, but you get to a point where it's like, "Look, man, like, honestly, yeah, we're done." Because
do you ever? Here's a good question for you. Do you ever feel like a relationship kind of hits its end as far as like coaching goes? Like maybe the communication lines are fuzzing out, or there's always tension in the room, or something like that. Do you ever feel like that? From your reaction, I'm guessing I'm not alone.
Oh man, I've had it happen twice in the last year and a half.
Really?
Yep. With my 2 best players.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's funny how it's always the good players. Because that same thing. It was 2 for me too, and it was over the course of like the last 4 years. But the same thing. It's just like you could tell it was coming. It was coming.
Yeah, you know what? It was really interesting. First one, young man has won 2 provincial titles in the last 3 years, and the one he didn't win, he was playing in the U.S. Junior that I caddied for him.
Mm-hmm.
He just signed with Morehouse University in Kentucky, which is great for him. I'm still very excited and happy for him. I mean, like, you don't lose. You coach a kid for almost 4 years. You don't not be happy for him.
Right.
He didn't know how to tell me he wanted to go see another coach, and so what he did is he totally sabotaged our last lesson. And I hadn't talked to him for I didn't talk to him for like a year.
Wow.
He basically, I said, "Listen, I'm sorry that this isn't going well." He goes, and he was getting all kind of pissy with me and all that stuff. And the way he ended it, and I mean, his dad unfortunately had to call, basically was the one who told me what he was doing, and I was like, man up here. Right. But it's immaturity, and you're 16 and you don't know how to do that.
Right.
you know, and I honestly didn't think that it was going to end, right? The second one is not because of the student, it's because of the parent.
Really?
Yeah. So 7 years, 2 world titles, drive to putt, countless tournaments, hits puberty, body is incredibly changing, crazy tight hips, cannot, always goes into pelvic extension, had her on gears, do all the research, check it all out, know that it's her inability in her body to move.
Right.
And it's not the golf swing.
Right.
But the inability messes up the golf swing.
Sure.
Finishes 6th in the provincial junior at 14 as a freshman, not even going into her freshman year.
Wow.
And dad says, yeah, I want somebody on a second opinion. Haven't coached her since.
Dang.
And that's been probably one of the harder ones. Yeah. But my cousin, who I work with, has been one of the best to help me understand that. And the reason being is this wasn't her decision.
Right.
Okay. Because she will go to whoever her dad says, go see this person.
Right.
She's not one to say, I want to change.
Right.
I don't understand this. He looks at his daughter and thinks, my athletic daughter, who's crazy good, something's wrong in the
instruction.
Right. And it's and the funny thing is it's not the instruction.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part with coaching kids
and that hurts, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Just so dude, the things I've done above and beyond for both of those kids.
Oh yeah.
That it wasn't all about this.
Right.
The things I've done for them to help them beyond what their parents is just immeasurable, right?
Yeah.
And the way that it gets done, it's really a huge Band-Aid that gets ripped off, and it's really painful. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I can't tell you I can tell you that it bothers me even just to talk about the second one,
right?
Because I care so much, and you're sitting there going, the parent's not right.
Yeah.
And it's they're not right. But you are powerless. You want to scream at the parent. You want to tell the parent, you want to tell, you want to tell the parent everything you want to say as a coach, but you're not allowed to,
right? Because
it doesn't look good.
Right.
You're upset. You want to scream. You want to swear. You want to tell them everything I want to. But here's the thing is I don't do it because again, I go back to what we talked about at the very start. It's you dig deep into the faith, you dig deep and pray a bunch and ask for strength and ask for guidance. And now what it does is the strict reality is I can pour way more into the kids that I have.
Right.
And the time is not being eaten up by this person who was actually eating up a lot of my time, and I wasn't getting as much out of it as I do from the other kids.
Sure.
It took that to realize. So there's the silver lining for me.
Right.
As much as it's painful to bring up and talk about, it's how do you find the silver lining in what happens? Because, my cousin said this, she goes, you never know the opportunities that are going to happen because she leaves you.
Right.
And I was like, great point.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of been my thing with the same scenarios, with the second one that kind of came around, it was very, I could tell it was coming to an end. It was either I was going to have to call it off or they were going to call it off. And we were getting to that kind of crossroads from one of the programs I was running anyway. So it was kind of already getting into that window. But what and this is kind of obviously more of a coach's conversation for the coaches that listen to the podcast, but it's like I've had one mentor tell me, you got to firm line, friends, clients, don't blend the lines. And I sit there, I'm like, I don't know how you can do that when you spend hours with somebody, travel with somebody. You can't not feel somewhat in a friendship with that person. You can't do that.
I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
And I think that almost makes you too calloused of a coach, even though you might say you'll bend over backwards for them, but then you show them that there's a, no, I'm not going to do this, or you got to pay an exorbitant amount of money for me to do that, whatever. So I don't think that was the right answer. But at the same time, I think there has to be a blend of, like, I have lines, right? If you text me after 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, somewhere in that window, it depends on what my family situation is that night. Like, it's done. You know what I mean? Like tonight I'm working till 8, so it's like I'll give people leeway till 9 o'clock to like catch up on messages and stuff. But if I'm done at like 6 and you text me at 8:30, you might get a text at 5 a.m. when I wake up and see how much you like it, right? But I think that's kind of where I've done a better job, is like the community, like you were talking about, like how much extra you spend on them, right? Like if it's after business hours, no thanks. That train is over, unless it's like hey, something emergencies happen and we need to cancel tomorrow, or or Johnny won his first tournament, then obviously I'm going to answer. But if you're going to sit there and dog me and send me a paragraph to a short novel of how your kid's tournament went, bruh, I'll answer you at 5:30 in the morning, and we'll see how much you like to take that message.
Yeah. No, it is really one of those things. You all the relationships in the world don't really hold any weight if someone wants to make a change,
right.
and it goes to the point where it's like, I've had somebody tell me that exact same thing. They're like, yeah, that's why I don't get, I don't build relationships with my students. I'm like, well, then you can go do that, because that's not who I am. That's what I am. I mean, we're in the relationship business, for crying out loud. We're in golf. And because you and I coach kids, that's how they get to feel comfortable. That's how they that's how they become all in with you. That's how they drink your Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
It's if you're not building a relationship with them and understanding, like, as a 9-year-old, what's pertinent to a 9-year-old versus a 14-year-old, right? Versus an 18-year-old. Right. And for that matter, what's going on in their brain space, and how can you be that salve sometimes where you're their escape, and you're helping them get through things that they, the stuff they have to deal with, like Brett McCabe says, the stuff they deal with on a daily basis from a social, right? It's just insane. So how do you not build a relationship? I think that's absolutely the wrong way to go about being a really good, successful golf coach, especially if you're a junior golf coach.
Right.
I mean, you know what? If you're just, if you're wholesaling people in and out of your academy on a daily basis, and they're mostly, your demographic is, 60 and above, like Eric Agorno, right? And that's not a bad thing about Eric. Eric's done an amazing job, but his demographic is 60 and older. 60-year-old men. It's basically his demographic.
Right.
So he doesn't even dive into the junior realm on his YouTube stuff, because he knows that's not what floats his boat.
Right.
And that isn't his customer base. But he probably will be more apt to not have, as many strong relationships like you and I might have, just be based on the fact that he's got a different business model and different way about going to his thing. I'm not saying he doesn't have any. I'm just saying it's different based on who your client is. And I think for kids and a junior coach, relationships are an absolute must.
Yeah. Well, how did you manage that during lockdowns and pandemics when you're having to coach from your couch on a FaceTime? How did you, negotiate that, water, in the sense of you're not getting to put your hands on them and move them around. You're not getting, and we know this, it's like, it's not the same, you and me face to face, but doing this on a video conference is way different. How did that affect your coaching?
It made me get really creative. It made me get really good at being communicative. I got really good at being able to take my time. And when I say that is, like, when we knew we were on lockdown until the end of April and stuff, I would see a couple of my kids twice a week, half-hour sessions, just really small batch of information. And then the ones that didn't have the setups where they couldn't swing,
right.
I made sure I reached out to them. I either did a FaceTime, a text. I did something to let them know that I was in touch with them and staying in contact with them, because, again, it's just a check-in. Like, I've already done that with a lot of my kids during this time right now since Christmas, because since the 26th of December, we've been pretty much on lockdown, and I've been trying to stay in touch with these kids, right? So it's been a month And, you know, I'm constantly trying to say, hey, what are you doing? How you doing? Want to do a FaceTime? Like, let's say hi. Because what it does is it gives them hope.
Right.
Right. It gives them, coach is checking on me. That's great. Hey, listen, if you're not, you know, if you don't have a net, hey, make some swings in the garage. Send me a video. I mean, I don't care. Let's see what it looks like. I mean, you can do nice, slow, you know, really slow golf swings and start feeling what that feels like. Right.
Totally.
Like, and so, I mean, you know, I really think it's just always staying in contact with them and is been the best part for me, but it's really had me change my communication. And I think I'm a lot better for it.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that I was going to ask you is it's one thing with your students that you've already had, right? Like you already have a relationship with them. You already kind of know where the errors are, and you know, so that's one thing. But then when it comes to like the new student that in this time and age, like how has that been for you trying to, you know, make first contact, try and watch a swing on a FaceTime video? Let me go ahead and tell you, it's a pain in the butt if you don't know what you're already looking at.
Right. Well, that's a great point. You know, one of the things I've gotten really good at is being able to screen record when I'm on a Zoom or I'm on a FaceTime.
Yeah.
And being able to like quickly say, okay, hold on 1 second. Let me just go check that, and like quickly go into the app and check some things. And your eye tends to look for what you're looking for, right? And I actually did this yesterday. It's funny. I had a Zoom call with a young guy who's looking for a new coach. He had sent me some videos, just had a great chat with his dad, you know, and so then I went and did a little swing review and stuff like that. But it's like, you're looking at new things and it's like, okay, so where do you start from? Right. And I really think it's understanding, that what are you trying to do? And you want to communicate that to that student. So it goes back to you, like, how much are you going to be able to practice this?
Right.
What are you going to be able to do in this time? Well, let's just start with setup and takeaway, even on putting, right? Like, let's work on your routines and habits. And you kind of find you figure out what they can do, and then you adjust from that point.
Right. So
it's, I mean, I'm a lot colder than you are. So it's, I'm, you know, I'm very much inside.
Right.
You know, you have the availability to still get outside every now and then. You know, some days are colder than others.
Yeah. It's going to hit 55 today.
Yeah. Okay. You suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today it's going to be 0. So 36 for you. There you go. It's going to be 0 today. And, again, Great White North, brother. But, you know, you should when the borders all open in, you know, 2025.
I might be pushing 40 then, brother.
Whoa, bro, exactly, right? Oh man. No, I was thinking you should grab the whole clan and come on up and take you up to some really good country fishing and living for with those kids.
Don't tease me with a good time. All right. Time flies when you and I are chatting. That's all I know. And I want to say thanks again for being the first guy back from my little hiatus while I've had all these changes going on with my life. And as we kick off 2021 with the Junior Golf Blueprint, it was a no-brainer. I'm calling Doug Lawrie. It's just what it has to be the case. Dougie, thank you for sharing your insights for both the parents and the coaches. How can people find you on the internet so that they can reach out to you and chat with you?
Maddie, first of all, thank you so very much for having the blueprint. I am so very honored whenever you ask me to contribute. I can't thank you enough for just being my good friend. And also, you know what? If people want to find me, Instagram at Focus Golf Group, Twitter at Focus Golf Group, and then Doug Lawrie Golf at Facebook. You can find and YouTube as well. One of the things I gotta say is golf is a game for your entire life, and I really think that you and myself and all those junior coaches that you and I continuously interact with, we're making a difference in these children's lives, and we got to keep working on it, keep getting better, and like I always say, better never stops.
That's right. I feel like there should be a hashtag or a shirt with that. But there probably already is.
I do have that. I'll you know what? I'll do a reprint and send you one. There you go.
Perfect. All right, Dougie. Thanks again. Appreciate the time. And until next time, sir, we'll see you around.
Later, bro.